Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech. As always, I'm your host, Michael Avery. And today we're talking about what everyone is talking about at the moment, and that is artificial intelligence. It has absolutely exploded, whether you use a large language model personally, whether you're using Copilot in your business or organization. The one thing is everyone is talking about AI. I suppose the big question is, how many people are getting real value from this technology? Because I think we're just touching and skimming the surface when it comes to the potential of artificial intelligence. And there are few better places to talk about this potential than the CEO of Microsoft South Africa, Vukani Mngxati, who joins us now, who's been in the role for 5 months. So still putting your shoes and getting comfortable under the desk there, Vukani, after a long spell at Accenture. Great to have you on the podcast. Hope you're well.
I'm good. Thank you. And really thank you for inviting me here. And it's also great to see you again in person.
Yeah, far too long. We need to do more of it, Vukani. But I mean, we're talking about AI at this remarkable point in human history where there's a lot of hype around AI. We've heard similar hype stories before when we moved into the cloud, and we know Gartner's hype cycle. This time does feel and sound remarkably similar, but also very different.
Yes.
What would you say is so different about this particular technology that distinguishes it from other technological hypes that we've had in the past?
Yeah, interesting you call it a hype. I actually see it a bit differently. I think this is really a technology that changes how the world works and lives in the true sense of the word. What do I mean by that? The AI and generative AI capabilities that we're starting to see that's shaping up at a very rapid pace is actually changing how we work, how business processes are executed, how we interact, how we consume information, and how we act on information. But also it's bringing additional, let's call it, machines that are now operating alongside humans and executing tasks which otherwise were executed by human beings or used to be executed by human beings. And this is why I call it a fundamental shift. We've never seen before the technology that enables or that fundamentally takes on tasks or activities that were performed by humans before. And in most instances, execute those tasks better, faster, cheaper than what we humans would typically do it. Sometimes when I try and make it a little bit clear to people, I equate it to the introduction of a combustion engine, in the 40s. If you think about that, that was a moment of significant change that never reversed. In fact, it just got better. You can imagine that folks who were transporting goods using horses and wagons back in the 40s saw this as a major disruption, because now you're introducing a car. I've got 100 horses and 100 carts. That's my business. You basically are killing it in a way. And folks who changed and adopted or realized the value that's coming with combustion engine, those merchants went and bought the cars and replaced the horses with the cars, and they became very different. But also it changed the future of how we as human beings work and live. And that's why I equate that moment to the AI moment. That fundamentally what we're seeing is a significant shift in how we think about things, how we execute work. Imagine if you didn't have a business process to apply for a passport or for an ID, and you said, how would you do it in the world of AI? You probably wouldn't visit a Home Affairs office. You probably would do it all from home. You probably would authenticate what you're doing at home. You would take a picture at home, and you'd get some AI agent to crawl through the background and do all the work that needs to be done. And at some stage, take a lot or an Uber guy delivers it at your home.
Yeah.
That'd be a totally different experience compared to what we have today. So that's why I'm calling it a significant shift in how we work and we live.
And that significant shift means that almost every single business model, every process inside an organization is potentially open to an AI disruption or doing it differently to the way that we've done in the past. And I think, again, that's what makes people feel, on the one hand, quite excited about this technology and also maybe quite daunted by the fact that things are changing at such a rapid pace. And what I'm seeing inside business at the moment is that you've got some early adopters. We were hosting a panel recently talking about AI in financial services, and it was a large bank and a very large law firm, very well educated audience. And when the Copilot demonstration was made, it was amazing how many people were still unaware of the power of this
Right.
technology. So I think we're still in the early days of the adoption of that combustion engine, if you want to call it that. So where are the leaders? Where are the companies that you see using this technology, adding real value? And what are they doing that maybe the other companies can learn from?
Very interesting question. We've coined this term called a frontier firm.
Mm.
A frontier firm is our way of describing what you're describing, which is how do companies that are fast adopters of AI and the companies that we believe will see massive value in AI actually think? How do they think? How are they doing things? How are they executing inside their business to adopt AI at pace and with which mindset? So this is what we call the frontier organizations. The characteristics are actually very interesting because firstly, it's about leadership. Just like any strategy, this is a strategic sort of thinking. It starts from the top. So the top has to get it. I'm talking about the CEO, the board, the CXO, the C-suite inside the business. They have to fundamentally understand how AI is changing their world and how, therefore, they should think about their business in this new world. You and I were just talking right now about the business processes and the fact that the business processes are being turned on their heads. You are not improving a business process. You are reimagining a business process. You are reimagining the experience using artificial intelligence. You are contemplating how might I get support if in a bank there is a fraud detection case that comes into my phone. How might I receive the support? How much might AI actually enable me to spot those kind of things before they even hit me? I think there is a big part around kind of the leadership angle to this, thinking about artificial intelligence smartly and embedding it across the organization in the right way. Then I would also call out let's call it the enabling factors inside the organization. How do you ensure that AI is not implemented haphazardly? When we talk to companies and we say, I was with another major insurance house this past week, and we asked the questions, how many agents do you think you have? Now, they didn't know the answer, but we did, because we had spent some time and used our technologies to find out. The 1 week before, they had 860 agents. 2 weeks later, they had doubled that number.
Wow.
So people are already building agents in corporates. They're doing it right now. Corporates have to understand that the technology isn't waiting for you as a leader to make the calls. People are already adopting the tech and they're using it. But the question is, are they using it in the right way? Is the data protected? Is the risk and governance of that managed well? Do I know what these agents are doing in the company? Are they using the right tools or technologies, or they use whatever they come across, whatever they buy? You kind of have to put all those guardrails in place. So when people adopt the technology, they are actually using it in the right way, so to speak. And then finally, the enablement of the people. Yes, you're enabling the environment, you've got the right, but the people will do it. So they got to know how to do it, and they got to know how to do it in the right way.
I think that's a big challenge as well, given just how quickly the technology is moving. Well, it's the old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Absolutely.
We have to rewrite that. The more things change, the faster they change, especially in the world of AI. And so we need to keep up with the way we train people. But I want to maybe come back to the governance and innovation intersection just quickly, because it's so important, so fascinating that people are using agents, and that doubled within the space of a week. And at the same time, you've got this tension of ensuring that your employees, your staff are innovating using this technology, but within the right framework and guardrails. How do you strike that balance to ensure that you've got the governance in place to ensure that data is protected, that you're not putting sensitive customer data through an agent that may expose your organization to risk? I think inherently in South African business culture, there is still we're quite conservative and risk averse, so to speak.
We are.
But we need to innovate. So how do we strike the balance?
Look, innovation is happening. It's not waiting for us to govern better. So the point is, I don't think we are short of innovation. As a country or as people, we're not. We will find ways I'll find a way to make my work better, so I can maybe get some sleep at night. Realistically, that's what people do. The innovation angle, I think, is good. There are instances where you can foster it by creating more deliberate innovation capabilities inside organizations. In Microsoft, we have an innovation hub in our own business, and we just churn out new thinking, new ideas. We challenge a lot of people to come up with new smart things. And they do this because we are encouraging it. But I just want to caution by saying that it's not like we are short of innovation. It's happening. It's happening now. What we've got to do is to kind of innovate within guardrails. That's what I'm advocating, that we don't let our people go crazy or go wild in innovation, because that could compromise corporates or governments.
And I think that is the big risk. We are seeing, certainly in the banks that I've seen, and they demonstrate all of those qualities, characteristics, you say, of the frontier organization. Was one large listed bank that is absolutely, from a leadership perspective, the C-suite have bought in.
Right.
In fact, so much so that when the GPU chips were banned from being sold to China, when DeepSeek came around, there were an excess in the market, and they went and they bought a few, and they've now got them in South Africa, and they're playing with them, and they're really excited about what this technology can do.
Right.
It can compute on a scale that you can turn thin file customers into thick file customers, but they've implemented in such a way that there are the guardrails. And I think, banks, if you use an example, they're highly regulated. And so it would be very sensitive to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it comes back down to leadership. And you mentioned it earlier, this requires the right kind of leadership. What would your advice be to the C-suite in an organization when it comes to bringing their people along and upskilling and training their people? I know Microsoft is very passionate about this. You've recently made a big investment. You want to, I think, train 3 million people through schools, a big partnership with MTN recently as well. So how should organizations be thinking about that human factor and upskilling their people to ensure that we're not left behind?
I think it just need to be deliberate. We have to create programs that are deliberate as corporates to skill up our staff. The truth is that these capabilities are in many ways disrupting what our people are doing at work. And we are moving into a world where people will exist alongside machines. And there will be this handshake between, or there is, it's not like it's not future, it's now. There is this handshake between, I pick up the call, or an agent pick up the call because you phoned the bank, and the agent says certain things or tries to verify you as you speak, and then says, oh, okay, it's Michael. What do you need? You say, press 1 if you need this, and you press 1, and then it may hand over that call to an agent somewhere. So you see that you are living in this dual world where agent and machines are working along each other, but we have to get our people to understand this and be comfortable with it. So there's a huge change management aspect, but there's also a skilling aspect to enable people to, not everybody is going to create robots or agents, but everybody is going to use or utilize some agent of sort, right? So I'm advocating, therefore, that there has to be the right level of skilling at the usage level, at the creation level, at the strategic level, around how the organization, engages and manages AI across the firm.
That requires, obviously, just having a basic understanding, an audit of a skills level inside an organization to say, right, at least you know what your base level is. You're always, as you say, you're going to have those who won't need much prompting. They'll go and do their own training, which you can do. And they're self-motivated, high agency individuals. Not everyone in a large corporate is going to be like that. So maybe let's reframe it and also ask, what do you think leaders might be underestimating today around this transition that, if they're not focusing on, could come back to bite them in, say, 5 years' time?
I had a meeting yesterday with a bunch of CEOs who I'm close to. And one of them owns a company in Mallorca, and they do bookings for vacation.
Yeah, tourism. Yeah.
Tourism. Okay. And they said to me, it didn't occur to him that AI could disrupt his business so much. He said, people are no longer, they pop in their questions on an AI agent instead of going through a search. You could direct the traffic if you paid for it, that it must call up my company and somebody might book through that search.
Yeah.
Now, AI doesn't do that unless you teach it to do it otherwise. So what's happening is that with this particular company, people are no longer searching and therefore landing in your page and therefore booking.
Yeah.
So they saw a drop of about 80% of their bookings in 6 months.
Wow.
This is I'm responding to your question to what do leaders underestimate.
Yeah.
It really is the impact to the bottom line.
Yeah.
There are so many similar examples. Now, what could this company could have done differently? They could have just possibly seen this ahead of time and build their own tools through the AI, in the AI world, that enable similar world as what they had before. And therefore, they might have maybe been disrupted, but the disruption might have been much smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about. There is a significant amount of disruption that's at play now. And companies who will succeed are the companies that see it ahead of time and do something about it.
Yeah, it's a great example. And we're already seeing, I was reading in The Economist recently, that example magnified out towards most business models on the internet that have relied on SEO to drive traffic through to their websites. And I do it on a daily basis using various different LLMs. I find myself searching through the LLM. But
Absolutely.
Increasingly, for media, I've seen the big value in using a co-pilot, for example, to analyze financial statements. In financial and business journalism, I can put in financial statements for the last 3 years and say, compare the ROIC, the ROE, the different metrics. Something that would have taken, I could have done it, but it would have taken me 2-3 hours in the past for one company. I've got 4 different companies to get through. I just wouldn't have had the manpower. Now we can do it and up our level, up our game, and deliver a product then differentiates you, and so you can go get more advertising. And so if you're not thinking about doing things differently, I think you're being left behind. What would be your final bit of advice?
My final bit of advice is corporates have to be absolutely deliberate about the strategy of AI. You cannot leave it to chance. You have to focus on the right things that will enable value. So the game here is value. You have to ensure that the business understands where the value is going to come from, how they measure it, and how you execute inside your business to generate that value. We don't do AI for the sake of doing AI. We're doing it and making it available and providing to the people because we know the power it has to drive value. And we know that those who adopt it will see value. We also know that those who don't adopt it will probably lose value. So my word of advice is absolutely be deliberate as a leader and focus on what is important and what's critical in your business. Understand it. If you don't understand it, seek help.
Yeah, I often joke at conferences, Vukani, that the only person who is not going to be disrupted by AI is probably my ex-wife, because she knows everything already. But for everyone else, I think you've got to be using this technology and leaning into it. It is, as you say, a transformative technology, probably even more powerful than what we've seen with the internal combustion engine and others combined, just in terms of what it can do for humanity and for business as well. Great having you in studio here on Business Talk. Look forward to catching
Michael,
up.
thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, and fantastic conversation as usual.